So to understand the fundamentals of being able to start a campfire, or any fire that is, you need to understand that fire requires three separate things in order for it to work. You need a source of fuel, a source of oxygen, and a source of ignition. Remove any one of those three components and you will not be able to have a fire. Fuels are actually separated into three separate categories also. The most important part is the tinder. The tinder is actually what's going to start the fire. It's going to be that very quick response, intense flame. So you need to have something that is small and fibrous, like pine needles right here, or a bundle of dry grass here. Something that can either easily take a spark and flash ignite into a large flame. Going into step 2, you'd go into a small kindling bundle. That's basically where you would make the form of your fire, either a cabin style or a teepee style. You want small sticks and twigs to be able to take the flame from the timber to light the kindling. And then after you develop a certain bed of coals and you actually can sustain flame with the smaller particles, you're going to increase into larger fuel size here. Going into a larger fuel size will generate more intense coals and be able to sustain when you go into the full size logs that will generate even more heat. You have to increase in increments so that way you can get a good steady amount of coals, so that way you can boil water with, you can cook your food with, or keep your core temperature going. Very versatile thing of fire, and it is by far one of the most important things that has helped mankind over the course of generations. So going into some of the natural forms you can find of a timber, right here I've got separate examples of what you can find in the woods that work out really well. Now these things right here are really good to use during the warmer weather climates like we are right now. Currently the temperature is right around 75 degrees in the peak daytime, so this really helps with drying out the natural materials so you can start your fire. Right here I've got a collection of dry grass, a sample of tree moss, and some tree bark. And right here, this tree bark has a lot of tree sap on it. The pine tree sap is rich in a chemical called terpene, which is one of the main ingredients in turpentine. So the tree sap is actually very flammable and it can help out a lot when building a campfire. So before you actually set up your fire, you need to do a little bit of an assessment of your area. Don't start your campfire in an area where there's high dry grass all around you. The smallest amount of an ember will actually cause the rest of that grass to light on fire. We are in a little bit of a campground deep in the forest, so this is a great steady area to go. As you can see, we've got plenty of open space around us to where I can control if any embers do come out. There is some fuel sources all around, so there's still going to be a risk if you are careless with what you're doing. So use caution, use safety, and make sure you plan ahead before you just go in and do it. So right here is our fire pit. We've used this fire pit a few times now and it works out really good for us. So let's go ahead and start doing some of the demonstration of the timber collection. Alright guys, so first off we're going to start off with the dry grass bundle. The dry grass bundle is definitely going to be a quick flashy style ignition. So let's go ahead and test it. Very quick to response, intense flame. That's exactly what you want in a timber pile. You want that to be able to ignite the rest of your fuel sources. So next up we're going to try out the dried tree moss. Dried tree moss is actually very common around in a lot of areas, so you can utilize this everywhere. Just make sure that your moisture content is low. Tree moss is kind of like cotton, where if you take the cotton and you fluff it out to where the fibers have more air flow between them, it will actually burn a lot better. See? Quick flash ignite and great to sustain. Alright guys, so after scavenging around a little bit more, I found an awesome little piece of bark that is completely saturated with tree sap. So let me show you how it is with tree sap acting as the fuel, with the bark itself as acting like a wick. you start to hear the crackling, and you know that the tree sap is liquefying and it's going into the fuel state. As you can see, I don't know if you see it in the camera, the tree sap itself has liquefied and is now acting like a fuel, like gasoline or something. Basically a natural element fire pod, a fuel-soaked fibrous pores that you're able to utilize as a fire starter. As you can see, that the tree sap itself is what is igniting the fire, and the tree sap is liquefying and expelling all those flammable gases. Those flammable gases are what is actually causing that fire to go. Now you can see closer towards the tip of the fire, that where it's drying out, you can see that the fire is starting to go a little bit damper there, but it's also igniting the bark. So right there, you've got yourself a natural made fire pod. The tinder is the first portion of what you need. Now the second step that you got to do is to form a structure for it. Basically what you want to do is to completely harness the flash properties of the tinder to be able to ignite the kindling. So let's go ahead and walk through the basis of what I use as a structure form for making my campfires. Alright guys, so the structure that I like to use is the cabin style. And with all cabins, you need to have a floor. So where I start off is I start by making an elevated platform for my kindling. And remember, the size of the fire really depends on what it is your purpose is. Are you just boiling up some water? Are you cooking over the campfire? Or are you having a bonfire for friendly gatherings? Understanding the necessity of the size of the fire is very important, just because you don't want to waste the fuel that you have. Some places may not have that much fuel sources naturally around, which would cause you to have to do more processing in order to do it. All right, now that we've got our floor established, let's go ahead and start building the walls of the cabin. Just like with those old Lincoln logs, you're going to start off with side to side, top and bottom. And then you're just going to go in opposite of what you did prior. And there you go. Basically, you want to make it high enough to where you have enough space in the center to be able to put your kindling in there. You got to make sure that you leave enough space in that center for oxygen to flow. No oxygen, no fire. So filling up the cavity. Now before I light the fire, I like to have enough sticks on the side to be able to form the roof of the cabin. The roof of the cabin is going to take the blunt force of all the fire, and it's going to continuously support the amount. So I like to put a mixture of a variety of sizes on top. So now the next step is to ignite the tinder, and then just pile on top of it some sticks. That's going to keep the fire going. And there you have it, you guys. You've got yourself a great campfire on the works. So continuing on from here, you would want to continue adding fuel as needed, being able to generate that body of coals. The body of coals is what you want for when you're going to cook something or when you're going to boil water. So as soon as you start seeing that the fire is really catching on there, you can add in more sticks to it, continuing it in a TP style. This way the majority of the stick is actually in the fire. That way while you're utilizing your smaller fuels, it's helping to ignite the larger fuels. And then just keep adding from there until you have the campfire size that you desire for the task that you're trying to do. As a measure of safety, you should always make sure that you have the appropriate supplies around you to be able to control your fire. So right behind the camera, I do keep a 5-gallon jug of water right behind me and my shovel with a pile of dirt. So this way, if there's any loose embers or anything coming out, I can control the circumstances of the fire. All right, guys, as you can see, the coals were burning out really good. Made a great kielbasa and some hot dogs over the campfire. So just like the other item we've shown on the channel before, this is one of the items I'm going to express the most amount of safety and caution for. Failure to understand the essence of what fire can and can't do is very dangerous. A fire can definitely break out of a campfire and light the whole forest on fire, depending on the climate and the circumstances you have. But understanding basic safety and understanding when and where not to have a campfire, you can prevent a major forest fire. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. It'd be awesome. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. But tell me why. Tell me why you didn't like my how-to video here, so that way I myself might be able to learn something. Only when you challenge your own opinion on something can you grow as an individual. Knowledge is power, and here we're empowering everyone. Thank you guys. I love you. God bless you, and have a good day. Final note, guys, fire safety is everyone's priority. So before you leave your campground, you got to make sure that your fire is completely out. One of the best methods to do it is to make sure that there's plenty of water so you can dump on top of your fire and swirl it around to make sure there's no coals left over. Even the smallest ember blowing off in the wind can catch a forest fire. Be safe out there.